Some of the absolute best stories out there, they aren't about superheroes saving the world or action stars fighting villains. They're about everyday people. People just like you and me, who are pushed to the very edge and finally stand up to toxic behavior. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating deep dive into the psychology of toxic relationships, staggering arrogance, and honestly, the beautiful clinical precision of karmic justice. We're looking at real situations where people were pushed to their absolute limits, and we're going to break down exactly how they flipped the script. It really begs a massive question, doesn't it? What actually drives an ordinary, patient person to just snap, to orchestrate an elaborate, life-ruining downfall for someone else? Well, we've analyzed a trove of these accounts, and here's the thing. It almost never happens overnight. It takes a very specific, highly potent cocktail of arrogance and unrelenting cruelty from an antagonist to awaken a strategic mastermind in the victim. Just to instantly set the dramatic tone for the extreme situations we're analyzing today, I want you to listen to this jaw-dropping quote from a woman named Megan's story. Her husband had to actually look at his own family and say, "If you're not willing to pay, we're going to court for trying to kidnap my wife." Yeah, you heard me right. Kidnap. This wasn't some petty family squabble over a seating chart. Megan's in-laws, along with a completely delusional childhood friend, literally conspired to intercept her on the day of her honeymoon, substitute the friend, and send Megan off with a random relative. When the plot completely fell apart, her husband dropped that legal hammer on them. I mean, how do relationships escalate to felony territory? Section 1. The Anatomy of Revenge. To understand how things get that far, we need to realize we aren't just reading gossip today. We are breaking down the clinical stages of a classic revenge story. Walk through this step by step with me, because every single satisfying payback story follows this exact architectural flow. First, we have phase 1, the unsuspecting victim, just someone trying to live their normal life. Then, phase 2, the toxic escalation, where antagonists aggressively start pushing boundaries. Phase 3 is the breaking point, that singular, quiet moment where the victim says, "No more." And finally, phase 4, the karmic payoff, where the trap is sprung. Section 2, the toxic in-law archetype. Let's look at how these conflicts actually start. The primary antagonist is usually exactly who you'd expect, the meddling mother-in-law. We see this heavily in both Amy's and Megan's stories. This is a matriarch who feels her authority or status is deeply threatened by a newcomer. So what does she do? She weaponizes jealousy. She might organize family boycotts of weddings or aggressively plot to undermine the bride at literally every turn. They operate under this wild delusion that their adult son's life is still entirely their property. Just notice the sheer, unapologetic audacity in this direct quote from Amy's mother-in-law after she skipped her own son's wedding. Initially, she tried to play it off. She claimed she missed the ceremony because she simply forgot and accidentally booked a trip to a hot spring instead. Right. But when she was finally confronted, she drops the whole facade and admits she boycotted it purely out of spite for Amy. "I would have attended if Amy wasn't the bride." It is a brazen, astonishing display of toxic entitlement. But the mother-in-law often has an accomplice. Enter our secondary villain archetype, the delusional friend. Take Catherine from Megan's story as the ultimate example of boundary-crossing hubris. She literally shows up uninvited to Megan's wedding, wearing a pure white dress, and boldly sits herself right at the family table. She even demanded half of Megan's filet mignon. Can you even imagine? These antagonists completely rely on the polite social grace of the victim to get away with this outrageous behavior. Section 3. The ultimate breaking point. But a victim's politeness can only stretch so far. How do victims endure months or even years of abuse before they finally snap? What is the final straw? Look at the sheer length of time Amy endured targeted harassment. 6 months of relentless snide comments about her Ivy League education, then the wedding boycott. Then, they literally slip a stinging caterpillar into her shoe, causing an allergic reaction. But the breaking point, a month later when Amy's husband is hospitalized, she calls her mother-in-law to update her. The woman hangs up the phone, says she's too busy, and demands never to be contacted again. That is the exact moment Amy's empathy dies and the strategic planning begins. Sometimes, though, the breaking point is a staggering lack of empathy from your own spouse. Listen to this phrase from Lisa's story. While suffering from severe morning sickness, her husband Bob actually tells her she's faking it. He looks at her and says, "Pregnancy isn't an illness. Why are you acting like you're having such a hard time? That precise, callous phrase completely shattered the marriage. It's the cold, lonely realization that the antagonist is fundamentally incapable of care, and that officially initiates the breaking point. Section 4. Setting the perfect trap. So, what happens next? We shift focus to the protagonist's strategic response. This is where the tears stop, the emotion drops, and the analytical, calculated revenge begins. They set the perfect trap. Let's break down the absolute brilliance of Sophia's plan. Her fiancé, Tom, dumped her for her much younger sister, Lucy, and verbally abused her on the way out. Bizarrely, Sophia gets invited to their wedding. Now her brother happens to run the sound system for the venue, so the steps are meticulous. 1. Attend the wedding calmly. 2. Wear a hidden pin microphone synced perfectly to the venue's speakers. 3. Go to the bridal suite and calmly bait Tom into an abusive, arrogant rant. And 4. Broadcast the entire conversation to every single guest waiting for the ceremony. Flawless execution. Oh, and real quick, if you love diving into incredible dramatic stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss out on our deep dives. So, what did they hear? I'm glad I didn't marry you, ugly, old, and bad-tempered. That is exactly what the guests heard, echoing through the venue speakers. Tom screaming this venomous insult into Sophia's hidden mic. In his arrogance, he inadvertently broadcast his true abusive nature to all of his wedding guests, his own parents, and his new bride's family. The trap brilliantly used his own toxic hubris as the weapon against him. Or take Marina's ultimate trap. Her mother-in-law relentlessly mocked Marina for coming from a quote-unquote poor family of educators. But Marina's father is a university geneticist. Marina observes that her fiancé Travis has a dominant genetic trait, a widow's peak. Neither his father nor his mother has one, but the mother's assistant, Mr. Williams, definitely does. Step 3. Marina's father calmly, scientifically, lays out the genetic impossibility in front of the whole family, completely dismantling her toxic mother-in-law's 30-year secret affair and ruining her high society life in seconds. A totally detached, factual execution. Section 5. The karmic payoff. And now we enter the final, most satisfying stage of the anatomy, the total downfall of the arrogant antagonists. Let's contrast the scales of justice here. Amy suffered petty bullying, a caterpillar sting, and a head wound from an altercation. But her trap? Luring her in-laws to her house when they desperately needed a financial bailout. This resulted in her father-in-law violently assaulting her and her husband, leading directly to his arrest. Their travel business completely collapsed during the pandemic. They suffered total bankruptcy, seized assets, and a jail stay. The karma is exponentially heavier than the initial bullying. Then there's the delicious irony of Kathy's story. Kathy's sister-in-law and mother-in-law constantly called her an unemployed parasite. When Kathy's mother died, they rushed over, demanded a divorce, and told Kathy to get out. The reality? Kathy was a highly successful investor who actually owned the luxury high-rise condo they were standing in, and she made substantially more money than her husband. The brutal punchline? The in-laws had already sold their own home, assuming they could just move in and steal Kathy's life. They were instantly left homeless. When we look at the consequences across all these sources, it is a rapid-fire list of devastation, an absolute avalanche of karma. We see public humiliation via hidden microphones and canceled weddings, total bankruptcy and seized assets, arrests for physical assault, and unhinged kidnapping plots, people like Tom being demoted at work because the scandal leaked into their professional lives, and above all, complete social isolation. The villains are totally abandoned by their own families as a direct result of their own actions. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Is karmic justice just some mystical concept? Or does toxic hubris, that absolute blinding arrogance, inevitably orchestrate its own downfall? From everything we've analyzed today, it seems that if you push an unsuspecting person hard enough, they won't just fight back. They will simply step aside, set the stage, and let your own terrible behavior destroy your life. Think about that the next time someone crosses a line. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to the channel before you go, and I'll see you in the next one.